Good day. There's a country in Central Europe called Hungary, a country rich in history, Roman, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and even the Soviet history. And recently, it became one of the first few countries to join the NATO alliance from the Warsaw Pact, and it joined the EU in 2004. For the past few years, couple of years, or a decade or more, they've been led by Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban has tended to be a very strong-willed leader whose position and view of his society tended to run counter to the views expressed in the EU, views that were liberal democracy and agendas pushed by the globalists. Viktor Orban had issues regarding the rule of law and democracy. He was accused for being firm in his democracy because he felt that the way the judiciary should be run in their country is sovereign to the decisions in their country, in his country, Hungary. He was also accused of stifling media freedom. He was accused he has had issues with the European Union because of how he felt that they were hanging on to the funds due to Hungary because of his position and his view on an opposition to some of the policies of the EU. And then he has always accused the EU of financial blackmail. He has strong views also regarding migration. He says he's not going to open up his country to migrants from all over the world because the unique nature of Hungary is unique to Hungary, and he will not come and doesn't believe in the globalist policy of diluting or mixing with all other peoples. So he opposed unfettered migration into Hungary. But where Viktor Orban has come to have his most problems with the EU has been the decision of the EU regarding the Ukraine-Russia war. At most times, he has always been advocating for peace. He feels that Europe has shot itself in the foot by all the suites of sanctions they've placed on Russia, and he feels that better engagement and understanding of the Russian point of view will be best for the security architecture of Europe. He has had a position totally at variance with the position held by almost 20 all the other members of the EU. And it is just him and the Slovak president that tend to be the dissenting voices in most of the strong policies against Russia that had been taking place all these years. This time around, he finally, in these days when the peace and a few days before the meeting and summit between President Trump and President Putin, a summit he feels is a very good thing, and he has advocated for engagement with the Russians. He has finally made a statement as regards to the state of the war between Ukraine and Russia. He says that war is over. The Russians have won. Good day and welcome to my channel, Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Viktor Orban has made his decisions and his conclusion regarding this Ukraine war, and it is one that says that the war is over. In his own reckoning, this war is over. He made this in this interview he had with
hogyha ez egy nyitott végű háborús helyzet lenne, de nem. Az ukránok
a podcaster.
elvesztették. Ezt a háborút Oroszország megnyerte. A kérdés csak az, hogy a nyugatiak, akik az ukránok mögött vannak, mikor és milyen körülmények között ismerik be, hogy ez megtörtént, és mi következik mindebből. Tehát az ukránok nagyon nehéz helyzetben vannak, az ukrán elnök meg különösképpen, de nagyobb bajban, még a saját ügyében sem ura saját magának, hiszen Ukrajna azért nem kapitulál, mert ma fegyverrel és pénzzel az európaiak, úgy látom az amerikaiak egyre kevésbé, ellátják. Ha ez nem lenne, akkor ennek a háborúnak már réges-rég vége lett volna. Mi mindig is azt mondtuk, hogy nem is kell őket ellátni, hanem az európaiaknak kellett volna, még a Biden kormányzat idején, ezt mi egyébként hivatalosan is javasolt, vagy az európai intézményeknek, vagy a franciáknak és a németeknek kézzelfogva leülni és tárgyalni az oroszokkal.
Well, Viktor Orban followed up with a tweet that he had done some few days ago, a few hours ago. He said, um, just 4 days ahead of the historic summit between President Trump and President Putin, the European Council sought to issue a statement ahead of the heads of state, ahead of the a statement in the name of all EU heads of state and government before the liberal mainstream chorus begins its newest rendition of their favorite Putin's puppet tune. I decided to share my why I could not support the statement on behalf of Hungary. The statement as attempts to set conditions for a meeting to which leaders of the EU were not invited. The fact that the EU was left on the sidelines is sad enough as it is. The only thing that could make things worse is if we started providing instructions from the bench. The only sensible action for the EU leaders is to initiate an EU-Russia summit based on the example of the US-Russia meeting. Let's give peace a chance. President Orban has been a very different kind of voice in the past 3 years. His position has been very at variance, and he has called the EU now a warmongering organization. He says the nature and the texture of decision making in the EU is totally at variance and inimical to the well-being of the EU, especially since the sanctions that they have been placing on Russia have had the terrible blowback of affecting the economies of Hungary, of EU countries, particularly the big countries who are industrial and are we're very reliant on Russian gas. He has fought against any attempt to sever access to Russian oil and or Russian gas. He has been very steadfast in his position against the Ukrainian cause, against the Ukrainian war, and against the decisions of the EU. And this is coming at a time, just a few days before the meeting between President Trump and President Putin. We are getting to find out that so much is happening on the Ukrainian war front. Pokrovsk is almost been overrun. Vast amount of progress is being made by the Russian military in that particular sector, all across, putting pressure across, but Pokrovsk is almost lost. The pace and the speed with which Pokrovsk is being taken is amazing. Even the people who have been watching this war for several years, the 3 years of the war, they have not seen any movement of the Russian troops at the pace they've moved. This is coming at a time where Russia is already announcing that they are suspecting that the Ukrainians are close to having they are worried about how the Ukrainians may want to end, create problems and intervene in this summit that is going on. They've already said that the Ukrainian is preparing a high-profile provocation intended to derail the upcoming American-Russia summit. What they are claiming is that the Russians claim, the Russian Ministry of Defense claims that Ukraine is planning a big false flag action, and they have already even shipped Western journalists into Kharkiv so that an attack will be staged, and it will look like the Western journalists will now record what was going on there and claim that it was a Russian attack. So already before it will even happen, the Russians are already making a lot of noise about this possible provocation. This, and many other false flag already. People are worried about what the British will do. People are worried about what the Europeans will do. People are worried. The Europeans have taken a common position already, and all they are keep saying is that Ukraine should be a part of that meeting. No decisions should be taken outside Ukraine being there in the meeting. But President Trump has said Ukraine is not invited. Possibly there will be another meeting and Ukraine may be invited, but that this is a filling out meeting that he wants to have with Trump, with Putin. Today we found out that the meeting will be held in Anchorage, and it's even speculated that it may even be held on a military base in Anchorage, one of America's preeminent Pacific Coast military bases. That location is not yet sure, but it has already been speculated that, that's where that meeting will take place. But prior to even before the meeting, the usual suspects are out. Kaya Kallas had announced, Kaya Kallas, the foreign spokesperson, the head of the foreign unit, foreign department of EU, has already announced that they are already preparing a 19th round of sanctions against Russia. It is very funny to be keep hearing about this unending rounds of sanctions. Kaya Kallas is so vested in this antagonism against Russia that it's quite surprising. She comes from a background where her parents had some experience with the Soviet Union. I researched and found out that her mother did have problems with the Soviet Union and I think was sent to the Gulag once, whereby either Stalin or so, because the hatred for Russia is very visceral. It consuming. It occupies her at a level that is very unhealthy. She is the one who has proposed that Russia should be broken into smaller components. Not only her, though, quite a number of other policymakers in America have also proposed that Russia, but this is a country built over several thousands of years, and it's the biggest country in the world, 11 time zones, fought many wars, won many, won, lost also some, but have kept their empire intact through several iterations of geopolitical changes that all over the world, the Cold War, the Crimean War, the changes in the civilizations in Europe, the changes in the French civilization and the French Empire, the British Empire, all have come and gone, but the Russians continue to maintain, to a large extent, the full size of their country. I didn't add the Ottoman Empire that was almost as big in extent as the Russian Empire, but has been broken up now into 32 to 36 states, including most of the states in the Middle East. They have maintained it. They have maintained their country, and vast as it may be, they continue to maintain it. Russia has a problem now, a demographic problem. They need more Russians. The Russian population, relative to the size of their country, there's a mismatch. They are just about 150 million. But what they are doing is that they're bringing in, just like America does, and just like all the other countries or that are um, doing very well do, they tend to open up their country to immigrants, and a vast amount of immigrants from Central Asia, from the Caucasus, are now streaming into Russia. At last count, 9 million are recorded in Russia in recent times. So Russia is trying to find a solution to its demographic problem, but Putin has pushed very hard that the Russians should have more children. More children and family-friendly policies is one of the policies that he has been pushing forward to try and get the Russian population to increase. And it is showing even in the choices and the decisions they make in the war, the battle with Ukraine. Because the tactics of the Ukrainians is one, of the Russians is one that limits engagement, limits damage to their personnel, and despite and contrary to what is being reported mostly in the Western media, they try to take as minimal casualties as possible. That is reflective of the fact that they just don't want to, they don't have the personnel that much to lose. So, and they have an eye on the possibility of fighting a grand war with Europe. That is what is stoking up the vast industrial buildup going on in Russia now. Because the antagonism and the rhetoric of countries like Germany, Britain, and France in recent times, where industrial output has grown for the manufacture of arms has and budget for the manufacture of arms has been expanded on several fold, means that Russia may just be not only fighting this war, but also looking to the possibility of engaging the Europeans in a ground war in the future. Already the Europeans, including NATO President Rutte, has already said that Russia and and NATO may have a showdown by 2027 or in a few years' time. He said 3 to 5 years' time. So the Russians may just be conserving. They already have a vast array of volunteers who are joining the military. They don't lack it. They have a vast, they are the biggest military in Europe now. But it is the improvements in their manufacturing capacity and the improvement in their weaponry. Just today, they got a new batch of Su-34s fighter bombers delivered to them. They continue to have this. The suites of missiles they have are also improving. Now they are deploying a Orishnik, and then they have serial production of a Orishnik. And all this is going on at a time that they realize that even though President Trump is doing the best he can to make peace between them, that war is not unending. We see activities going on in the Caucasus. We see activities going on all across Russia in a manner that makes you think that they really want to extend Russia, especially now in the Baltic. The Russians now have to be using their own navy to escort the tankers that come to ferry their own oil. They have to spend more in security because of the threats of countries in trying to intercede and interdict in their trade. This is quite worrisome, and these are all the things that are creating tensions in the world and creating the need for engagement with the Russians, because at a time like this, it is very easy for misunderstanding to flare up. And this is the world's largest custodian of nuclear weapons. People tend to forget that when they engage with the Russians. It is very surprising to see, especially the British, on a country on an island that can just be obliterated with a few nuclear weapons, being the most belligerent. Russia is vast and big. Russia will need many, many rounds of attack and for before it can be destroyed completely. Nobody comes out of a nuclear war looking good, because the environmental consequences will mean that even if you survive the initial attack, you will have a wasteland you probably will not be able to use again. But then you look at countries that are very tiny and minuscule relative to larger geographies, and they are the most belligerent. It's not just belligerent, they're the ones that take the most action, they're the ones that are most daring in trying to cause conflict and war. President Trump has moved ahead and insisted that he deserves the Nobel Prize. In fact, the White House has even come out to the point where they are putting President Trump possibly as a Nobel laureate. They are insisting that he is the peace president. The peace president in America is not a good thing. The last peace president, we know what happened to him. He sought for peace, he made peace, he campaigned for peace, and he tried to tell his people about peace. He died. He was assassinated after convincing them about the need for peace. There are institutions within the American body politic that just want conflict to continue. JFK went against that grain of thought. He he went and at a time that the world came to the brink of nuclear war with the Cuban Missile Crisis, he made peace with the Soviets. He reached out to the Soviets, made peace with them, and tried to sell the concept of peace to America. And what happened to him? He died. President Trump is navigating a very treacherous terrain, and he knows it. But even before this engagement with Russia, he had to have some form of credibility. He had flushed out and discredited the famous Russiagate uh, cry that had dogged and undermined his first tenure. He had made sure that information about the role Obama played, the role that the CIA director Bremen played, the role that all the FBI director Comey played, all it was out there in the world there. He had proven using the revelations of Tulsi Gabbard that was a hoax. And that what was the sin? He just said this same thing that he's doing now, that he advocates for better relationship with Russia. Whatever may be prompting him, and that is his desire and that is his intent, but whatever it is that may be prompting him, obviously runs against the grain of thought in America, in the body politics of in the Congress, in the Senate, and in among the unseen hands that run America, the levers that are the puppet masters that are at the back there, the ones that President Putin says wear black suits and approach a president and tells him things that go contrary to all his good intentions. President Trump is meandering through all these realities and ousting them, fighting against the deep state. But how well and how much he will succeed is yet to still be seen. We are watching an unfolding drama, and we are hoping that he does succeed in it, because his war and his battle is not the battles outside the country. It is the biggest battle he has to face in the domestic scene. President Trump's biggest battles are in Washington, D.C. with him there, and he knows it. And that is why when need comes, he makes these big, bold pronouncements to satisfy them. Then when he has calmed their nerves and when they least expect, he makes a surprising move like announcing a meeting, a summit with Putin that has taken everybody off guard at a time they expected him to be putting 50, 500% bone-crushing sanctions against Russia and all the countries that trade against with Russia. Now he can't do that. He has done his move against India, moved India comfortably and conveniently into the arms of Russia. They are improving their relationship with Brazil, and they have moved back towards improving their relationship also with China. He did that with the Chinese, but the pushback from China was obvious for all to see. That rare earth metal card that the Chinese played is one that has created a logjam in President Trump's tariff war campaign. He has had 3 rounds now of meetings with the Chinese, and he has suspended. It finally came. 12th of August is arriving, but the Trump administration has postponed and suspended taking action on tariffs against China because he has no cards. The Chinese hold the whole supply chains for pharmaceuticals, the supply chains for semiconductors, ironically, even the semiconductors in the Trident Watch missiles, the semiconductors in the missiles in American arsenals. When they are building them, they need the old legacy semiconductors, not the cutting edge 4 nanometer, 3 nanometer that you find in an Apple. The old ones, those are the ones, the legacy semiconductors. That is the domain of China, and those are the things you find in these missile systems. It's China that is the leader in those supply chains. Even when you talk about all the intermediate products that American manufacturing needs, comes from China. Comes from China. And for that reason, he has gotten a better understanding of where the Chinese are. Today or yesterday, we heard that NVIDIA has been told that they will be paying an extra 15% of their revenue. The thinking here now is that they will put that 15% of revenue on the Chinese customers of NVIDIA so that that will be like a tax on China. But today, we've got news that the Chinese government has warned the companies that use NVIDIA products to suspend the use of NVIDIA products until they have clarity as to what's going on. One, they've already accused NVIDIA of trying to place backdoors and back channels so that they can have access to shutting down Chinese data centers. The Chinese seem to believe that they can also have indigenous production of such GPUs and AI chips. And for that reason, they are giving NVIDIA chips and AMD chips a quiet nudge so that they can encourage Huawei and encourage other developers to build those things. After all, they were denied access to the International Space Program. They built their own Tiangong. They were denied so much technology, and now they have 7-nanometer technologies that Huawei has used to gain back market share and dominate the market, smartphone market in China. There was nobody saw electrification of cars coming the way it is in China. Nobody saw high-speed trains. There's a lot that nobody foresaw. The Chinese hold all the cards, not to talk of the supply chains for every single metal and ore out there that is important to development, including copper, including aluminum, including steel. They control everything. So it is with care that they are trading, especially as the Chinese are also dumping American treasuries and also now giving their own loans, dollar-dominated bonds, for which they have better responses and better yields for those who come to take loans from them. It's a different world we are living in now, completely so. And it is for that reason that President Trump is measured in his engagement with China, much more respectful now. But the news also came out today that after the meeting between him and Trump, there's a possibility that there will also be another meeting between, him and Putin. There will be a possibility that President Trump will visit Russia. Andrei Yermak, the presidential aide of Putin, had already mentioned that it is expected that Putin will visit Russia. Trump will visit Russia as a follow-up to this meeting. And today, Caroline Levitt, the press secretary of Trump, also said that yes, there's a possibility that there will be a follow-up meeting in Russia. It will possibly not be in that follow-up meeting that Zelensky will be invited, because there's not the possibility that Zelensky will want to go to Russia to go and have that tripartite meeting that he so seeks, so wishes for, and which the Europeans have been wishing and hoping that he could be a part of. I don't think that will be. He will have to wait again. This is where I end my video for today. If you think that Russia has truly indeed won this war as Viktor Orban thinks, put it in the comment section. Or if you think this war is ongoing, the Ukrainians will put up a surprise. After all, Zelensky is like Churchill. He has a Churchillian air about him. That's what the British believe. And that, like Churchill, even though he may have lost so many battles, he will come up and he will win again. Somehow he will win. If you think that that's what is possibly going to happen, put it in the comment section. Or if you also think that Zelensky should be invited for the meeting in Russia, put that also in the comment section. Until I see you again in my next video, goodbye. Have a good day.